this morning,
Sure.
sir. We're watching the prayer breakfast right now. Forgive me if I have to dump out of this interview to hear the president if he makes his remarks on our watch. We know
As you should.
Now we know he's traveling there with Chief of Staff John Kelly, a sign that obviously his faith in him remains strong. Does yours, given this latest spate of accusations about what the White House knew about Rob Porter, when they knew it, and what they did or didn't do about it?
Well, obviously, my wife and I are involved in a number of different ministries, but one in particular where it deals with abuse, and there can be zero tolerance for this. And so, as you look at the reports that have come out, they're very troubling. You know, I must confess, I've dealt with Rob Portman before. It came as a real shock to me when I read the reports. I know it came as a shock to the president as well. And so, as you deal with this, we need to make sure that you deal with any situation as quickly as you possibly can. But certainly in this, his resignation is welcomed. I don't see the confidence in General Kelly being diminished at all within the West Wing. But we can have zero tolerance for this kind of behavior.
So if it is true that the allegations made against Porter by two ex-wives were reported to the FBI as early as in January 2017, and CNN has sources that confirm that the White House did know about this. If they did nothing all that time, and as we saw, General John Kelly's first statement did not mention the domestic violence abuse allegations, and then when he did mention them, he said they were new to him. If that's not true, Congressman, what kind of accountability should there be?
Well, obviously there should be accountability, but Chris, there's two things. One is the FBI and their knowledge of it, and certainly security clearance issues. We deal with those all the time, and there's a myriad of reasons why somebody may or may not get a full security clearance. And yet at the same time, obviously, if they know that those individual accusations had been made and were verified, then certainly there's no excuse to ignore that. And I think you and I both agree on that particular thing. It's real easy to rush to judgment already and say, well, this is what they knew when and where, and yet at the same time, I believe his resignation not only will be received, but it comes as a shock to many of us who have worked in and around the West Wing, and certainly know Rob to be someone who is not only efficient, but gives the demeanor of being the last person you would suspect of this kind of behavior.
And Porter denies the allegations. He does have a sterling pedigree academically, Harvard Law School. He's a Rhodes Scholar. We get it. And to be clear, Congressman, it's not your job to vet him, but it is the Chief of Staff's. And when you talk about
the Staff, and
the
you're
security
right,
clearance,
and there needs to be accountability there.
He still had temporary clearance a year in. He didn't have permanent clearance, and they get those files. We just had Walter Schaub on, the former ethics czar, for the ethics office there in the White House. He said they would have seen it, they would have known. So if they did know and they did nothing, what does that tell you?
Well, I know Walter well. Actually, he's appeared before our hearings before. I would say in this particular case, to say that they would know everything that goes into that is probably going a bit far. Would they know that he didn't have full clearance? Would they have some issues that they could have investigated further? Certainly they could, but Chris, to spell it out and suggest that they had pictures and all the kind of testimony that you're laying out today is just not accurate.
All right, we'll let the facts lie. I'm not going to chase you on it because in fact, it's not your responsibility. Once we know more, we'll tell you. Right now, we see the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, entering here. He traveled there with his Chief of Staff, tacit vote of confidence in Kelly there. He's saying hello, so let's keep talking until he actually starts to make his remarks. The budget, Mr. Meadows, to hear that Republicans may get behind this bill that's being put in the Senate right now pops the eyebrows because of all the spending. What happened to justice for the deficit that means so much for you and your caucus?
Well, as you know, we took an official position last night to say that we can't support this. It is eye-popping and eyebrow-raising, and yet we've got to figure a way to not only fund our military, but we've gotten to a point, Chris, where we hold our military men and women hostage. So we've got to figure a way to correct that.
Look, I get the problems with sequestration when it comes to the military. I've heard it from the men and women there who are trying to make the most of the dollars and cents that they get. And of course, there is a lot. Paul Ryan himself has said we spend more than whatever 10 of the next countries. Why can't we do it for less? Seems to be a different tune now. But look what we saw in the tax bill. I was shocked. I lost money. I didn't lose tax money because I'm in that top bracket, so you guys took care of me. But I lost money on bets that you guys would allow that tax bill, given how it explodes the deficit. What's happened to you guys on this?
Well, I can tell you on the deficit is interesting. We got all these deficit hawks that were Democrats and everybody coming out when we were talking about giving the American taxpayer money back in their pocket. But they were not anywhere to be found yesterday here on Capitol Hill. All of a sudden, when it comes to spending that same dollar, which is not their money, it's the American people's money, they're very liberal with that. And I can tell you that when we look at the kind of numbers that we're talking about right now, Chris, we talk about a $1 trillion deficit over a 10-year period, and pay for itself over 15. This is money that actually won't happen that way. When we're looking at increasing it, we could give 3 different tax cuts the size of what we just came if we would just get our spending in line. And so I think it's incumbent upon us. We don't have a revenue problem, Chris. We have a spending problem, and it's time that we get that under control.
Well, you may have both now, right? I mean, because that's a giant if that this tax cut will pay for itself. You will certainly
I don't know
have
that
less
it's a big if. I'll be glad to come back at some other time and we can debate that back and forth because, I can give you real numbers. But right now, when you look at the economy growing, hopefully, as much as 5% in this next quarter, it's good for the American people. And so to suggest that that was the wrong move actually would be to discount 3 million people that have gotten bonuses, wages that are going up, and that's good for the economy.
Well, it could be. I mean, we know this is, we know this discussion.
Well,
we've had it a long time, but 5%. What did the government come up with a cure for cancer I don't know about?
No, you may make the argument that it may not be good in the future, but today it's good for the American people.
Well,
we're seeing it in their paychecks.
It's good politically, but when Paul Ryan's bragging about somebody getting an extra $1.50 a week, I don't know that that's going to change fates and families.
Yeah, I don't brag about that. I'm talking about thousands of dollars in bonuses each and every day. In my district, people getting more money in their pocket than they would just a few months ago. And it's not $1.50, it's $1,000, it's $500 bonuses.
Depends on who you are,
wages.
unless you're in the top echelon, and then life is certainly good. I was a little surprised that if you cared about the companies giving back some of their savings to labor, to the workers, you didn't mandate that. You could have. You could have put it in the tax bill that, you're going to get certain money back and you have to give a certain percentage of it to your workers. You didn't do that.
No, we didn't do that. I think that we've got another bill coming out, Chris, that hopefully you'll follow on April the 15th. Davis and I, where we make these tax cuts permanent for individuals. So I look forward to seeing how many Democrats we get on board for that, and hopefully we can come back and talk to you about that particular issue. When we really talk about helping the moms and dads and aunts and uncles on Main Street.
Well, look, and that's an important conversation, and these aren't empty words from Jim Jordan and my discussions. You are always welcome here to discuss what matters to the American people.
I'll be one of the few conservatives. You're a worthy opponent, a good debater, and a good journalist. And so Jim and I have a high regard for your ability to banter back and forth with the facts. And so I'll be glad to do that.
High praise, high praise. I appreciate it. Let me ask you one more thing. So you guys have to deal with the spending part of this. You don't like it. I get it. Nancy Pelosi says her caucus isn't going to move on it unless Paul Ryan commits to have the same immigration debate in timing and substance as McConnell did. So do you think there's a chance that should happen, and do you think it should happen?
Well, I can tell you the same promise that Mitch McConnell made to his group. I don't see the speaker making that. Now,
you do not see it. You do not see him making it. Why
I do
not?
not see that commitment. Now, I do see a commitment to actually bring an immigration bill to the floor. Will it be on Nancy Pelosi's terms? Absolutely not. I believe at the end of the day, you'll see, 100 Democrats or more come across and vote for this bill either tonight or Friday morning. But yeah, there's going to be an immigration debate. There's going to be an immigration vote. The president's committed to that. The speaker's committed to that. And certainly we have to get that done. But on Nancy Pelosi's terms, that's certainly not going to happen, no matter how long she stands on the House floor and speaks.
Don't make her break her own record. That's a long record to break. She owns the record now.
Yeah.
Congressman Meadows, appreciate you making the case to the American people and your willingness to be tested on it. Appreciate it.
Same here.